we had to talk about a very interesting occurrence, right? We saw a statement that dropped just yesterday, as of this recording, issued by PRO referees. So they issued a statement in regards to the New Jersey, New York, Gotham FC versus Angel City FC game. And there was a moment in this game, and we talked about it during the recap, in which there was essentially a no call for Gotham FC. It was essentially a goal that was scored by Gotham, and during the game, as everybody saw on replays, it was a goal that was not essentially disallowed, but never called or credited. And instead a corner kick was awarded. And if you're subscribed to YouTube or watching us right now on YouTube, we have the clip for you. You can go ahead and check that out, and you could see kind of a little bit of the confusion, the chaos, the disappointment, quite frankly, out of the Gotham players not being awarded the goal by Anamanu there. So in light of this moment, in which there were all these highlights, right? Tons of angles to sort of see that this ball did cross the goal line. PRO issued a statement which reads, during the National Women's Soccer League match between New Jersey, New York, Gotham FC and Angel City FC on August 28th, an egregious officiating error was made in the 12th minute when a goal was incorrectly not awarded to New Jersey, New York, Gotham FC after the ball had crossed the goal line between the goalposts. The match officials misjudged where the ball had crossed the goal line and wrongly awarded a corner kick to New Jersey, New York, Gotham FC. The officials involved in this error have been removed from their next PRO assignments. And when we saw that drop, Lisa, we were like, that's massive.
Completely massive. So this call that happened and the no goal was mass chaos and confusion for everyone on the pitch, for everyone watching this game, for those calling the game, the broadcasters, because this goal, the ball was clearly over the line and it was a goal. And I've actually been thinking about this since this match, because on Sunday, because I was on the call for this game and I was just very confused as to how a sideline assistant referee, the AR, could call this a corner kick and not a goal. And maybe I was thinking that the AR was on the end line, like truly by the corner flag, right? That's their positioning. That's where they should be, to see if the ball crosses the goal line. And the AR saw that it crossed the goal line, but thought it was on the outside of the post, perhaps. That's what I'm thinking. This is the conclusion I've come to, because I initially started to think, as the ball goes up, does it cross over the goal line and then come back into the goal and hit off the post? Like, no, I mean, I'm not that great at physics, but I don't think that's possible. So I have to think that the AR made a mistake. I mean, yes, there's definitely a huge mistake here. There's no doubt about that. But I have to think that the AR thought the ball went over on the outside of the goal than inside the goal where it was. So just a lot of confusion there. I hope that everyone can learn from this situation. And the fact that Pro issued a statement makes me very hopeful that there will be lessons learned from this situation. Whereas officials can stop the play and talk, the center official can talk with their AR and say, hey, what did you see? Where did you see that ball? Because it was between the goalposts, right? So the center official can see that the ball was between the goalposts, and he doesn't know if it crossed the line or not. Meanwhile, the AR, they are seeing that it crossed the line, but they don't know where it was on the field. So there needs to be a communication and a conversation between the center official and the AR to determine, yes, this was indeed a goal, and we're going to move forward with that. Without VAR, there are still ways to go about troubleshooting issues on the field or unseen moments on the field, and that's one of them, by communicating and talking. But I think it's positive that there was a statement coming out from Pro saying that this was an egregious mistake, this was our fault, and that these officials have been removed from their next assignments due to this error. Now, yes, it's a great first step, but how do we make sure this doesn't happen again? We need to have maybe different training, maybe increased training, maybe this becomes part of the training, like this
Yeah.
specific video in this clip, because as you mentioned, there are so many highlights of it, because this has been the topic of officiating has been a topic throughout the entirety of the NWSL season this year, whether it's missed fouls, missed handballs, no handballs that are called handballs leading to penalty kicks and goals, goals that cross over. I know there was one for Sophia Jakobsen in the last San Diego match as well. And in that last one for San Diego, they ended up winning that match. But in this case for Gotham, they end up losing 3-1. And this goal by Ifeoma Onumonu that was not called a goal would have changed the shape of this game. So does that play a factor into the statement coming from Pro that this goal would have changed something in a game? And if a team is already winning 4-0 and you miss the fifth goal, does that really matter? I mean, yes, it does matter, but perhaps a game-changing play like this is something that sparked this conversation. Do you see this as a positive for the league and for pro referees? Is there change to come?
I'm yes and no. I'm a little bit mixed on it, quite frankly, because I think on one hand, there's often been within, and I think I just want to we're gonna narrow the lens of just this being on NWSL, because PRO for referees, they get assignments in multiple areas, whether it's an NWSL, MLS, and probably leagues underneath, secondary and lower on the tier and so forth. But I think within this space, NWSL specifically, there's often been a lot of, we'll just say, butting of heads, I think, between the two parties. Players have often expressed disappointment or frustration with officiating. We know there have been endless coaches, quite frankly, who have also, issued a lot of displeasure, amongst the officiating in the league. Several coaches, I think, even former coaches who no longer coach in this league. It's just often been a thing. There are numerous moments where you have somebody like Laura Harvey saying, I don't want to say anything because I don't want to get fined, or examples like that. So I think because of that history between the two sides, I think on the one hand, this is looked at as a bit of accountability, and that this is a good thing that they went ahead and tried to get in front of, or try to to put out there and to the public, and rectify things as much as they could, because obviously this doesn't impact the results of that game. It's just a statement of consequence from that game. And I think within it, it's both yes and no for me, because it's on one hand, it's a good thing, and then the other, I think it opens the door a little bit. I think it's only going to open the door for folks to bully and harass officials even more than they already do. Because let's be frank, there's a lot of ugly stuff that gets thrown around and set out there, and that's not helpful to the current situation, I think, in place, and the current situation being that I think a lot of people, they can go out there and see for themselves that there's a lot on record already that there has to be done about officiating, right, within the league and within PRO referees. That there was a very long and lengthy union battle, amongst the referees, better standards that they also needed to have on their game days. That also included things like better training and stuff like that, and those are all things that you want to see happen with officials of the game. You want those things for the officials so that they can better officiate matches, quite frankly, especially when we're talking about a time and place in this era of football where there's a shortage in this country of officials because of all of those things that I just mentioned. There's no one who's saying, what I'd really like to do, go be a referee. Someone's not there's not a lot of people who are saying yes, I absolutely want to open myself up.
It is a thankless job.
Yeah, it's I absolutely want to go out there and open myself up to harassment and bullying and threats and potentially physical harm. Like no one is like no like sane person is like consciously
I
like
mean,
saying those
despite
things.
like
So
all of
it's a
the
mixed bag for me. I like it, but I think like something like this also opens the door for like something else. I think if like there's a call that somebody disagrees with, that there's a potential to say like, well, you need to be suspended and et cetera, et cetera. So it's good in many ways. There's a lot of pros and cons of anything. I think this is one of those but it's unprecedented. I think that was the thing for you and I. We were just like, hey, this is the first time this has ever happened. And
yeah.
hopefully, my thing is hopefully it doesn't happen again. I think that's also the point within this, right? Like hopefully it doesn't have to get to this point again.
Yeah, I hope so. I was surprised at the statement, frankly. Like we
Yeah,
we
me too.
haven't heard much from Pro, and the fact that they responded to this situation, I think it's a good thing, right? Like it's more than we've heard in the past about missed calls that we've seen over the last couple months. So I think it's a step in the right direction, and perhaps even just like open lines of communication. That's a great step in the right direction.
Yeah, we'll see. And for folks who are just curious about like how things, like that go. One of the things about pro referees is they do open themselves up, and make themselves available throughout matches. And I'm kind of like I'm wading into like the media coverage waters of this stuff for folks who are just like curious about these things. But um unlike maybe some other sectors of official referees, PRO actually tries to make themselves available for comment in games. So there's typically a pool reporter that is assigned to a live match, and there's an allotment, I believe, of up to three questions that can be asked of officiating, and whether or not or how they answer, I think maybe is always up in the air. Oftentimes there could be a question regarding a certain call within a certain minute, and then a lot of times the answer might just be like the officiating saw XYZ per
Yes.
rule ABC, right? So it's not often where there's a ton of lengthy answers or explanations when in it, but there's opportunity there, right? And I do know that there was a pool reporting question that was submitted, and unfortunately, to my understanding, there weren't answers from that moment. But this in itself, this statement is a pretty huge statement of an answer, I think, coming out of it. So hopefully in the future, something like that error doesn't happen again. Hopefully in the future, officials actually answer the pool reporting questions that are submitted to them, and hopefully we get to continue to sort of maybe close out the remainder of this season with less questionable scenarios like this.